Welcome back, everyone. So now we'll start the next session. The so for next session, I would like to invite Kameshwar Rao. He's product manager with Ekstep Foundation. Apart from being, building products and solutions, he's a ardent learner of languages and has been, working on that for a while. And he's very keen in understanding the languages, how they work, and how technology can help literacy and language learning specifically in his current role. And apart from that, he's a brilliant stage actor. So if you looking at his presentation for product, maybe at some point you may also want to look at his presentation on his act. So over to you, Kamesh.
Thank you, Alok. Good morning to you all.
Your voice is little low, Kamesh.
Uh, okay, one second. Is it better now?
Absolutely, go on.
Okay. Okay. So, good morning, everybody. I'm sure you have been, enjoying the sessions, the previous sessions from Pramod and Namrata. Uh, just let me start sharing my screen. Are you able to see my screen?
Kamesh, go on.
Okay. So, we have been, I think you have got a pretty good overview of the architectural principles of the Sunbird and also the capabilities of, how learning, access to learning can happen through the consumption interfaces like what Namrata has detailed out. So what I'll be talking in my session is the kind of other side of the coin where, how do you create these learning assets and how do you manage them and what we call as sourcing capabilities, right? How do you source these learning assets which can, make consume and can be delivered for consumption. So that's pretty much what I'll cover in my session. Yeah, I'm quite excited to share, what we call at Xstep, what's cooking, right? Just for a quick recap, the Sunbird tries to, as you have probably seen in Pramod's session, it kind of generalizes the learning use cases by abstracting the various, people, personas into three: learner, instructor, administrator, and three scenarios: learn, help learn, and manage learn, and two interactions, which is learning and administration. Now, if you look at these different scenarios, whether it's learn or help learn or manage learn, the heart of any learning solution to enable these scenarios are the learning assets, right? For example, a student learns certain concepts through probably explanation videos, or he or she may practice through worksheets, right? And teachers can help students learn through certain activities, through certain lesson plans that they might create, right? And in fact, even in manage learn, you have the fundamental blocks which are assets like surveys, for example, can be used by DEO to survey on what the current status of learning is at schools, right? So the learning assets become the fundamental building blocks, and they can also make the learn exciting. For example, a good game can always be exciting for learners of any age, actually, to learn something interesting, and similarly simulations. What is important, or a capability of a learning digital learning asset, is that they can be, if they are rightly designed and defined and created, they become reusable across various contexts, right? For example, a set of questions, I can use it as a worksheet, but someone else can use the same thing as an assessment, right? And of course, we all know that they are quite easy for distribution. And also interesting is that they can actually be used both online and offline. Digital doesn't always means it has to be online, right? In fact, it can be physical also. For example, I can create a digital version of a document and always take a printout and kind of distribute, right? So learning assets, how you create them, how you define them, becomes a very important function of any learning solution. Uh, if you look at a little bit deeper into what a digital learning asset is, right? There are various dimensions of it. Let's say to start off with, you define what is it actually. Is it a game? Is it a quiz? Is it a textbook? So on and so forth. And for whom is it? Is it for a teacher? Could be an instructor, or a learner, or for an administrator. And for what purpose, right? Is it to explain certain concepts, or is it train someone, or is it to assess someone? The purposes again can be different. And other dimension, of course, is the format, right? How you store the content, or the asset. It could be video, audio, HTML5, so on and so forth, right? So these are the dimensions on how you define an asset. Moving on, how you create an asset. Again, there are several dimensions. For example, who can create or contribute assets? It can be individuals, it can be organizations, which can be profit, not for profit, so on and so forth, right? And how can it be contributed, right? Again, somebody might have already existing assets, which they can reuse or repurpose for certain contexts, or create things new, right? Or and similarly, like how an organization who needs these digital assets, how can it get them? What are the mechanisms or processes? It can be built in-house. Everything can be built in-house, or it can be crowdsourced from public, curated from existing set of assets, and so on and so forth, right? And then last but not least, the dimension of how an asset is accessed, right? Like what Namrata has touched upon, there can be several ways of accessing these assets. Search and discovery, through scanning a QR code, or accessing it through a direct link, and many ways of accessing it. So when somebody is creating these digital assets, these are the various dimensions that have to be kept in mind. And any learning solution has to kind of cater to these various dimensions in creating digital assets. Now moving on to who are the players, right? There are different players in the ecosystem who, let's say, want to consume these digital assets for their learning scenarios. For example, it can be NGOs working with certain institutions to improve learning outcomes, or it can be government institutions, it can be private institutions. These probably have a demand for the digital learning assets, and there could be a lot of providers who might be providing. However, like especially in a country like India, we know that the contexts are quite diverse, and a lot of things, if it happen on silos and point solutions, they wouldn't be scalable, right? Because somebody might have certain using certain digital assets for their learning solution, which can be reused by some other. But if they are not interoperable, they'll have to again create their own assets and kind of duplicate the efforts, right? And also the problem is how these wide network of players can be connected, right? There can be a lot of content lying with content providers, and they don't know how to maximize the utility, right? So this requires a careful thinking in terms of how to scale this solutions, if we are looking at such a societal level, internet scale solutions. So that's where uh, basically the Sunbird infrastructure comes into play, where even for creation processes, how we can enable different players, right, in the ecosystem to connect with each other and address the diverse use cases, right? And some of the basic principles are like open specifications, like how Pramod has touched upon. Uh, the way learning assets are defined, if they are defined through certain open specifications and models, they become interoperable, right? And then we also have minimal and extendable process flows, like whatever the bare minimum processes that are common are designed as part of the services within the Sunbird, which can be extendable for each scenario, for each solution. And other important thing as part of which I'll detail a bit more in detail is the generalized and extendable models and microservices that Sunbird has in terms of creating these digital assets. And to put all this together, a scalable architecture where it can be deployed for a large scale implementations. So with this, I'll kind of go into details of what the key capabilities are. Basically, like any infrastructure, it's basically building blocks. These capabilities are building blocks using which a lot of variety of solutions can be built. Right. The core of this whole uh, creation infrastructure, sourcing infrastructure, is the asset models, right? What the Sunbird does is it encapsulates the common set of properties and behaviors, right, across different learning assets into certain minimal generalized objects, right? For example, let's say a question becomes a object which can be reused across different contexts, right? I'll give more examples. But what this architecture allows is the common set of behavior is captured as generalized objects, and it can be extended through just configuration to domain specific categories, right? And similarly, like how you target, which means that how do you specify these assets are for these targeted audience, right? There can be a generalized mechanisms of how you specify that, right? So that's again a part of this what the asset model enables. The fundamental reusable units are the resources, like your images, audio files. It could be words, for example, to develop any learning language learning content. Words become the fundamental resources, right, which are reusable, right? These are reusable assets which can be used to build consumable objects. And then we have templates, which are very powerful in defining a certain common behavior and make creation of similar objects quite easy, right? Uh, and then the basic consumable objects, what we have in the model are three types of objects. One is content, second is question, and third is action. Content is any type of consumable content like a video, a document, which essentially the users will read through or play or consume it. A question is something which captures a question, right? It'll have an answer to it. It might have a detailed solution to it. You might have different choices of, do you want to show the question answer when the user answers it, so on and so forth. There can be a lot of behaviors, which I think you'll see in a lot more detail in the subsequent session, which are encapsulated as part of this question, right? And similarly, another fundamental block is the action, right? Where that encapsulates the behavior of what you do, right? There's certain activity or some action to be performed. So you can define certain timelines, and there'll be a status, whether it's completed, in progress, so on and so forth, which is encapsulated as action. And these basics building blocks can be then assembled into a larger collections, right? As a question set or an action set or a content set, and furthermore as a whole collection, which can contain any type of assets within that, right? Um, for if we go into a few examples, right, of how you can extend these to your specific domain, your specific solution, right? For example, a case study or a concept map or a simulation or a maybe explanation video, all these can be the categories that you define in your solution just by configuration, and specify that these are underlying content object, right? Similarly, question set, obviously you'll see a lot more examples. It could be a survey, which can be defined for a manage learn kind of a scenario, which underlying is again a question set, right? Similarly, like an assignment or an improvement project can be categories which are defined, uh, extending the action set, right? Similarly, a collection can be used to define, for example, a handbook, which you, let's say, parents are handed out to, how the foundational learning can happen to children, right? Or it can be as varying as a training course, right, for certain skill development. Uh, the interesting or power of the architecture is that these categories, which are domain specific, can be actually configurable by the system. And because they use underlying objects which are common, generalized, the APIs that require to manage these, let's say if you are building a new solution where you want to create simulation objects, it's pretty much the same API. You don't need to write a new API to actually say, I want to create a simulation, a type of a learning asset, right? You can use existing same API that works, right? So that's the power of the asset model, right? And then other important part is how you, the metadata of the learning assets. It could be name, description, keywords, etc., or behavioral attributes like whether an asset is visible to everybody or to a limited set of people within your organization, so on and so forth. And other behaviors like whether it's trackable, what is the if it's a action, for example, what is the completion criteria to ensure that it is complete, so on and so forth, right? Again, these attributes are defined in such a way, are modeled in such a way that there are certain common attributes for all objects, and there are some object specific attributes, and all these attributes are extendable through configuration, right? So that's pretty much what the power of this model would give. Another important concept of this asset definition is how do you tag an object in such a way that you can efficiently organize them, right? For example, I have a course. I want to say that this is a course on pedagogical concepts in teaching vocabulary, right? How do you specify that? And how do you say that this course is for teachers in Tamil Nadu teaching Tamil for classes 3 to 5, right? So this is the information to both organize, which helps organizing the assets, as well as discovering the assets to relevant users. The relevant assets can be discovered for relevant users. These tagging frameworks enable you to tag assets to relevant frameworks so that it can be easily discoverable, right? And again, what the architecture enables you is to, if you are developing a solution for your context, you can define your own framework of how you want to tag these objects, right? For example, these are just a couple of examples. Like if you take a context of education, school education, the entire K-12 curriculum, which defines the board, the medium start, the classes, the subject start, and the topics within each subject. All this can be modeled and defined as a curriculum framework, K-12 curriculum framework, and tag your assets like digital textbooks or anything like, for example, worksheets. You can use this framework to tag the content, right? Again, a completely different context could be skill development, right? Where you want to organize the courses within this skill development or even other type of resources to what job role it is, what skill it is, what competencies are there, and within each skill, what are the modules, so on and so forth, right? Uh, the same exact framework uh, services within the Sunbird can be used to define this kind of variety frameworks, right? And same API to tag, the learning assets with whatever the frameworks that are defined in your solution, right? So that's basically what the architecture enables in easily extending the base models to define and create your own domain-specific solutions. Here is, again, an interesting example of how you can use the collections, right, to assemble different, assets into a collection. Um, for example, you can use it to actually create a digital version of a textbook, right? You have your table of contents in your textbook, like chapter, unit, or even subunits. Uh, that can be created as a hierarchical collection object, and then relevant content can be linked to relevant chapters or units within that, right? I think there was this question in the previous session where what is the power of it, right? Uh, because these collection and the assets are kind of separated out as a definition, the collection can be created, right, separately, and the assets can be created separately and then can be linked together, right? It gives two advantages, right? One, it allows parallel and collaborative creation, right? So multiple people can work on creating assets for the same textbook, for example, right? And then they can be assembled, right? It need not be sequential, correct? And other advantage is these assets become reusable, right? I don't need to create it as a single package, and this content is accessible only through this collection. No, that's entirely not required, right? The each asset is its own piece which can be used anywhere, however, and it also becomes a part of a collection and accessible through the collection. So that's what the collection the provides as a capability. The other one, I think, which also got touched as part of the previous session, is all about scanning QR code and accessing content. It's a very powerful, simple but a powerful tool where it bridges the gap between the physical and digital. Uh, and as part of the creation, all you'll have to do is the Sunbird has the components to generate these codes, which it ensures that they are unique within your system, and a QR image is generated out of it. You take the QR image, print it anywhere you want, right? It could be textbooks, it could be pamphlets, it could be, in fact, even some physical objects like, let's say, a wall or some physical object, right? And then you can link this content or assets which describe or whatever related to that, and link them digitally to that code. And then once the users scan, the system would understand the links and throw up the relevant assets, right? The power of this is, if you see, it can be used to actually enrich the learning experiences as you move on, right? For example, a physical set of exercises in a book are just a set of exercises, right? You can't, if you want to extend that, or if you want to add more, it's a whole lot of printing, publishing, etc., right? But through this, all you have to do is print the QR code once, right? And then you can keep adding or modifying the content that is linked to that QR code, right? So as you progress in the learning journey, there is a flexibility of actually enriching those or modifying those learning experiences based on how the learner is, right? And of course, it enables access at scale, right? So that's a very powerful capability that the Sunbird has. So till now we have looked at of various capabilities in terms of how you define an asset, what are the various dimensions, what can be given, how they can be extended, and so on and so forth. Moving on to the process part, right? How you enable the processes to manage these entire creation, right? Sunbird has the basic flow, which is nothing but the organization which is requiring these digital assets. It can define their needs in terms of what type of assets, for whom, so on and so forth, and publish their needs. And contributors can start contributing for those needs, either by uploading their existing assets or creating new assets, right? They can also be assembled into collections like how we saw. And then sourcing organization reviews those assets, and if it finds it good based on their requirement, they can approve it, or they can reject it, or they can even request for changes, right? And once that review cycle is done and the accepted, the assets are published and become consumable. So this is the basic flow that the infrastructure enables. And these needs can be captured as what we call as a sourcing project, right? And you can define certain timelines around that project. You can define a sourcing project for a specific objective, right? For example, I want to get digital assets for my teacher training for such and such skills, right? You create a sourcing project, and it can have various models of how you want to get the content, right? You want to build everything in-house. That sourcing project can be private, or you have a set of organizations or individuals whom have these relevant assets. You invite them, and the project can be an invited a set of contributors, or you may want to actually crowdsource it from the public, right? Where public organizations or individuals, they can actually come and contribute, right? At that time, obviously, I mean, you wouldn't want to actually flood your system with a lot of assets. So there's a nomination, review, acceptance flow, which is also kind of basic flow, which is part of the Sunbird infrastructure, where the sourcing organization, once they publish the needs, the contributors who are interested can nominate themselves, and then the sourcing organization can review the nominations, accept, and the accepted nominees can then start contributing. So that's again a flow that is enabled as part of the infrastructure, and it can be extended too. And this is a very powerful way of sourcing the power of content, which might be lying anywhere, right, in fact in the world, right? There's a large program which the government had initiated and got a lot of content, like what Pramod had talked about, the Diksha. For that, the government has used this sourcing projects to launch a big crowdsourcing of learning assets all over India, and got a lot of good content. And finally, it also has certain set of reusable tools, ready to use tools, right? For example, editors to create and edit collections, content, questions, so on and so forth, which you can create in different Indian languages, almost all the major Indian languages and English. And there are also certain ready-to-use templates to create certain types of questions and content, which again can be made a lot more richer by contributions, right? And also it has some interesting process efficiency tools, like how you bulk upload assets, or to extract keywords from, let's say, a video, right, and tag it automatically to make it more discoverable, right? And there's also a reference sourcing portal where all these come together, and these basic flows are enabled with a UI, which can be readily usable for any jump start. Right? So how does it finally come together? Um, so in Sunbird, we have these layers, like the underlying is the models and specifications, the asset models that I have talked about, the tagging framework that I have talked about, and the content or the assets are stored in form of the ECML and QML, which are nothing but a kind of extensions of HTML. This again, because of these open specifications, it make these assets interoperable, right? So any solution that is created on top of this can literally use the assets created by any other solution, right? And then we have the microservices to provide the various capabilities, like content services, contribution services to enable these workflows, specific question related assessment services, the tagging and taxonomy and tagging services to tag these, define these frameworks and tag it. We also have language and translation services, which basically enable you to create a good language learning content, and collaboration services to how different creators can collaborate with each other to create content. So that's pretty much what the overarching capabilities are. And what is in it for you? Yeah, you could be either someone who's interested in creating your own learning solution in your domain, in your problem domain, and take the Sunbird and adopt it. You can adopt it as it is, or take bits and pieces of it and create your own solution. Or if you are interested in contributing, to learning, especially in Indian context, um, and if you have certain expertise in some of these capabilities, you can always contribute. So I definitely look forward to at least interact with few of you in terms of how we can collaborate, and further you can we can work with you in terms of either implementing a solution or contributing back. Thank you very much. I hope you got certain detailed overview of what the sourcing capabilities are. Yeah, and we can take questions. Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
thanks, Kamesh. So I'll go through quite a few questions here. Let me start from the first. So the question number one: what different type of content distribution models can I enable as an adopter of the Sunbird? Can it be open source? Can it be restricted? What choices do I have?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, right now, the three basic things that Sunbird enables in how you can get content is you can specify your needs and have a in-house team to create those contents, or you can crowdsource it from public, right? Like what I mentioned, you can publish your needs, right? And people can nominate themselves. You can create a system. I mean, you can develop a solution which enables that, right? Because Sunbird provides those capabilities as services, and you can develop the solution on on top of it in terms of your requirements.
Okay. So what you're saying is that if I have a need where I don't want anyone to use my content without a certain, I mean, I want to put certain restrictions, I can enable that using the Sunbird infra with necessary extensions.
For consuming the content you're talking about?
Yeah, consuming or even downloading and using it outside my
Yes,
system.
yes, yes. So like what I touched upon, there is one attribute called visibility attribute, which again can be defined on any different types of assets. And there are various, ways of defining your visibility. It can be defined as private for your organization. It can be public, which means it is discoverable by anyone. Or it can be even the visibility could be the collection in which the content is, right? For example, I want to create an exam paper, right? And I want to have the questions accessed only through the exam paper, right? So the visibility attribute can be, used to define that, and then that will enable the different levels of how restricted or how public it is.
Okay, okay, sounds good. Second question, you talked about various content, formats being supported. I have content in Flash Player. Can I use it if I choose to use Sunbird Infra for my need without the need to change it to another format?
Yeah, so if you want to extend this to new formats, right? Again, as I think Namrata has touched upon and what I have touched upon, it's an extendable architecture, right? So these, what we, I mean, a little bit more technical term, if you want to use, we call these as MIME types, right? Of the content. These MIME types are extendable, right? And all you have to do is to support a new MIME type like a Flash content. You'll have to plug in the player which can play the content and the editor which can either you can use the existing editor, like for example uploading existing Flash content. You can pretty much use the upload editor to upload the Flash content. So
Yeah.
it's basically like how you can extend to new formats. It's not restricted to only certain formats. The formats which are currently supported are what come by default, and the architecture is in such a way that it can be extended.
Yeah. So what you're saying, Kamesh, if I understood you right, it's like a Lego building blocks. There are certain blocks which are already enabled, and if you choose to add one more, you add appropriate plugins or building blocks both on the creation and also consumption, and yet you can still use existing tools which are already coming out of the box.
Yeah. For example, the entire creation APIs can remain as it is. You don't need to create new code to actually create a Flash content and so on and so forth.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, coming to the next question, I'm going to actually mix a couple of questions together. The question is, learning language. When we talk about learning language in Indian context, also, the younger kids. It's very important that the literacy aspect, the learning language, is built in early years. And then when we talk about learning language, it's not just about spoken language, but it's also about grammar aspect of it. And it's also about how does the kid gets exposed to multiple languages at the same time, the pronunciation of it. How can you elaborate on what are the possibilities, which are, which can be realized on the ground as adopter of Sunbird to truly use technology and digital content and Sunbird per se to enable some of those learning challenge to solve some of those learning challenges.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's something which is very close to my heart. So if you see, actually, like the there are the tools like what I touched upon. The content can actually be created in multiple languages, and there are what the language and translation tools. The language tools part of it provide the ways of how you can create the building blocks of a language learning content, which are words, right? How you define a word. A word will have an image, a word can have an audio, it can have a meaning, right? All these you can define as a part of the word, right? And then you can create, we have certain inbuilt plugins in Sunbird infrastructure for creating interesting language learning, content. Like, for example, you have jumbled words, right? For example, you shuffle the word and ask for making it proper. These content, what the Sunbird infrastructure enables is you can capture these words separately, and then you can build in a plugin to easily create, like, for example, teacher, when they want to teach a specific set of words for a lesson, the teacher can pretty much create the content which is relevant for them, and teach. And the audio, the mixing of the images, audio and visual, uh, kind of enables you to create some interesting content. And I think if you look at the Diksha adopting Sunbird, and you find a pretty good variety of language learning content out there.
Okay. Coming to the next question, Kamesh, question is, you talked about the asset model, various objects, in that context, like content, question set. If my needs, are not met from what is available out of the box for those objects, defined, can I extend them? Can I extend the overall asset model?
Yes, yes. Uh, we pretty much, I mean, this actually Sunbird itself is, the asset model itself is kind of built as an ongoing extension, right? It started off with defining content as the basic, asset, and then it extended to a question, and then it's extended to an action, right? So it's pretty much the same way. If we have a new behavior, new set of behavior, new set of attributes that we want to encapsulate as a generalized object, that can always be extended. And I think the interesting part is, if you already, a lot of this, like content, question set, question, action, cover a very large extent of learning objects, and pretty much you can just configure. You might not call it as a content. You want to call it as let's say a simulation, right? You can define it as a simulation without actually any code required. But if you have an altogether a new object with a new set of behaviors, you can extend it by creating a new code for that.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. Uh, can asset metadata be modified without coding any new API? Can you
Yes.
give an example?
Yes, yes. So, for example, let's say, uh, like what I said, there's certain metadata you want to capture, like name, description, uh, you know, copyright information, for example, and things like that, which are defined not as an inherent part of the object, right? I think once you go into detailed architecture sessions, I think next session touches upon it a little bit. But since the attribute definition is segregated, right, out, and it's externalized, right, it's basically configuration. So when you are deploying your solution, you define what set of attributes that you want to define for the various objects, and then start using it.
Okay. So it's pretty much configurable as per my need. I don't have to code for it. Okay. Perfect. Um, Next question, and maybe you've already answered it, but let me just go through it. Can I change attributes during runtime?
Change attributes to run the values,
During runtime.
uh, the values, or adding
Yeah,
new
I
attributes.
believe it's talking about attributes, adding or changing attributes.
Uh, yeah, I mean, it at runtime, it depends on how you want to really model it, and what for, right? Uh, the API kind of enables that, right? But you need to really think of what is the real need of doing that, and how you want to do that.
So when you instantiate using Sunbird, a new system, what you already clarified is that I can configure the system to have what is relevant for my context in terms of attributes, right? So that's already taken care of. But if you really want to do runtime, its possibility is there. You can always do that, but it depends upon the need.
Yeah, it requires certain extension of the APIs
Okay.
to do that.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. Um, Coming to dial, the question, and it actually may not be just dial, but let me just throw the question to you. Coming to dial, how can I imagine augmented reality apps? Is that a possibility leveraging Sunbird infrastructure?
Yes, yes. I think we do also have certain, showcase content which actually has augmented reality. It's again, it's pretty simple, right? Because the underlying API to access is same, right? So how you create the experience, right? Uh, can be entirely up to you, right? It can be augmented reality, it can be virtual reality. What, for example, you can take I think we had certain examples developed by our adopters, where you can actually have something like a robot, right? Controlled by through an application developed on Sunbird, right? So that's, yeah, the innovation is quite a scope. I mean, there's a lot of scope for innovation.
Mhm. A question about EPUB. How EPUB is handled? Can we create EPUB using our own authoring tools, or do we need to use the authoring tool which comes with Sunbird Infra?
For EPUB, as long as you create EPUBs based on the EPUB standard by any tool, you can create it and upload it. It has to essentially follow those EPUB standards. If there is some issues with creating that EPUB, that might be an issue. But as long as it is created for the standards, it can be created by any tool and uploaded onto the system. Like,
Okay, so pretty much the standard has to be followed.
yeah,
Okay, no dependency on the tool being used.
correct, correct.
Okay, okay. How can we create interactive practice sessions or lab simulations? Is that already something enabled in Sunbird Infra, or something we can extend to enable it?
Yeah, so I think interactive practice sessions definitely in the next session, probably Suren and Railu will go through in detail. But yes, for interactive practice sessions, or in fact, which can define like the various interactions that you want to have, right? Like you can define it as a set of questions, but make it interactive. It's one way, or you can completely develop an interactive content in HTML5, for example, uh, and upload it, right? So that's what it's already enabled.
So
Right?
like a lab simulation, if I want to do some lab experiments in a virtual, is that possible through HTML and
Yes,
S5P?
yes.
Okay.
So anything that basically compliant with HTML5, you can create a whole set of interactive content, and that can be created through the API.
Hmm. Okay. Next question, you talked about QR code and how QR code, truly connects the physical and digital, and how it makes basically a physical infrastructure, be it a book, be it a toy, be it any other, right? Infinite in terms of knowledge, because through that connect. Uh, if I connect a content to one QR code, can I still change the content or modify content? Am I restricted in any way?
No. That's the whole power of that, right? Whatever the content which is linked to a dial code can be actually dynamically changed anytime, right? You can either modify it or keep adding more to that. And that's what is a real power in terms of being able to sustain your learning through a single code.
Okay. You mentioned about sourcing, and you mentioned about various challenges which are faced when you're looking into a domain and trying to source the relevant content. And in that context, the process you talked about, you talked about creators and reviewers. So two questions around that. One is very specific. Can creators and reviewers collaborate in the process of creation? The second question is, can you probably go and give an example when you talked about the challenge of ecosystem engagement, and maybe maybe we can take example of education space, because if you look at it in India, the diversity of Indian education system, the languages, the physical geography distribution. Can you give an example to go a little more specific how Sunbird Infra has enabled the ability to to be able to get the relevant content and yet not constrained by a small team, right, which I have, which is not able to give me a scale and a speed at which I would like to go.
Yeah, sure. So let me take an example of where the governments, right? Uh, they were actually each government, right? They tend to go with a solution just specific for them, right? And we have seen a lot of organizations, they struggle in creating the content all in-house for their for their needs, right? What this Sunbird has actually enabled them is to, like what I touched upon, it gives the power of getting this content outsourced, crowdsourced from public, right? So your content creation, like what we have seen, let's say with organizations, when you want to create a content, right, for your needs, it is typically an exercise of at least some 4 to 5 months, right? You need to find the relevant people who can create. You have to train them. You have to bring them together. Conduct certain sessions and have a marathon creation exercise. That is kind of the power of the Sunbird infrastructure. What it enables is uh, each individual can create content at their let's say place. For example, there was a program which got rolled out by CBSE, right? Using the Sunbird infrastructure, they created a platform and they kind of asked teachers all over India, right, to just create the videos in terms of explaining certain concepts, right? And just upload it, right? And this whole exercise, right? Whatever they typically do probably which takes like 5 or 6 months, got completed in within a month, month and a half, because at this teachers were distributed wide across the nation. They could actually create their own content and just upload it, and somebody else parallelly sits and reviews it, and it curates them, and then take the content. So yeah, that's one of the biggest powers of using such kind of an infrastructure, which can make your processes more distributed, and hence you can have the scale.
Yeah. So in a way, what you're saying is that it's like something which is scarce, right? As an ability. Certainly, it brings me and reminds me what Pramod said initially, right? Ability to solve. That Sunbird infrastructure not only enables ecosystem to ability to solve their problems by extending the infrastructure, the Sunbird software, but also the infra which is built and it can further be enhanced and extended is also enabling the solving the problem of ability to solve the need of the relevant asset, the need of the relevant content, because that is a integral part of the learning interaction. How do you democratize that through the appropriate use of tools, because the distribution of knowledge is so vast, right? I mean, in India we have 10 million teachers. Everyone has their own strengths and weakness. How do you leverage that is the point, which
Yeah.
is
But
quite interesting.
one example which comes to my mind is where this has been quite efficiently used is, for example, with Tamil Nadu teachers, right? They actually distributed the creation in such a way that certain teachers who are good at, reciting poems, right? They record the poems and upload the audio. Somebody else is good at, creating nice visuals,
Hmm.
right? They create those visuals and upload the visuals, and the pedagogy expert, right, assembles these together into a single, content to, let's say, to teach a story or a poem, and so on and so forth. So that
Hmm.
basically it's quite a lot of power, right? You
Hmm.
don't need to rely on this expertise to be in a single person, right?
Hmm.
So multiple people with multiple expertise can actually collaborate and create good
Okay.
learning.
Okay. That sounds good, because as you're saying that the content suddenly becomes abundant, and as the content becomes abundant, then if I connect to what Namrata was talking about, and we talked about dial code, that suddenly if you integrate the ability for having abundant content to the ability to give the contextual content to a user through a QR code, you now can enable very personalized consumption experiences where each same QR code may give a different content based on the user who's trying to seek it for, based on some of the other parameters on the platform which the system can know what a user might be more interested in. So that's an interesting interconnect between what you the sourcing side of the challenge and how the need of the consumption comes into the play together. Sounds good. Let me see another question. So, in terms of when you talked about various content formats, you talk about the content model, you talked about existing tools which are already there. Um, what are the possibilities? I mean, if you have any specific example or two you may want to share, what are the possibilities, imaginations you think ecosystem can take forward from where the Sunbird infra is already there, maybe keeping from a sourcing point of view.
Yeah, actually, there's a lot of scope for innovation. Like I think what Namrata or Pramod had mentioned. This is barely we are starting, right? Uh, there's a lot of scope for innovation. For example, like what we talked about, a new type of a very innovative variety of content that can be, the Sunbird can be enhanced to support new types of interesting content. That's one possibility of how you can extend the Sunbird. On the other hand, like we have a lot of scope in terms of how uh, you can build upon the Sunbird infrastructure for more types of language capabilities, for example, right? Because we have so many different languages. You can actually, if you are a language expert, for example, uh, we can actually encapsulate that expertise into certain plugins, for example, on how you teach your language, right? There can be interesting ways that if you are a language expert, you can build upon that. If you are an AI expert, for example, I think that's a session which is there in the afternoon where a lot of it can be built. For example, the entire curation. of content, there can be a lot of things that can be developed on top what we have. For example, we have the let's say the tools, basic tools which we already have for extracting keywords from videos, right? That can be further enhanced in terms of how you make, extracting of different types of concepts from your video for better tagging, right? How you can build upon recommendations on top of that, right? Based on what users are using, how you recommend the content, or even the same thing for the creators, right? We can create recommendation engines to say like, okay, what do we mean by a good quality content, right? It can actually be further enhanced in terms of based on how it's used and so on and so forth. So yeah, I think there are innovation options, like endless options, and this is just a start.
Fascinating. So thanks, Kamesh, for a very, very interesting session.